Good evening to all our viewers today. And we begin this is Conversationist Talking Cures, and we bring to you yet another session on breaking the silence, conversations beyond boundaries, beyond geographies, beyond genders. And today we have with us uh, Sharif. Sharif is our guest today, Sharif the Rangnekar. And but before we talk about that, we want to let you know that we are here for you. And with this suicide that happened, we are here to listen to you. Please reach out to us. And this uh, with Sushant Singh Rajput, he seemed happy, and it brings to light another sad incident. And we want you to know we are here. Reach out to us, and if there is anything you want to talk, please talk, because that is important. It is very important that we talk and we communicate. And we have with us today Sharif. Sharif, I welcome you and thank you. We know you are very busy, but you took out time for this day. And I don't know, we are really, really grateful. And introducing Sharif, introducing you is not an easy task, and like I said every day, that please, I apologize in the start itself because there will be mistakes. We are trying to understand, and I may not be able to use the right vocabulary, but and like Anjali Gopalan said, the best part is to let the people introduce themselves. But I want to give them a flavor of what you are, and Sharif is an author. The book Straight to Normal, My Life as a Gay Asian, as a gay man, has been one of the biggest hits. Besides this, he's the festival director of the Rainbow Lit Fest, Pure and Inclusive. He's a communication consultant. He's a journalist. He's been in the area of writing. He's a musician. He makes music, and he's an advocate for change. And he supports the LGBTQ plus community, and there are many hats he wears, and it is, and as we move along, it is something that will just come. He's a PR person also, he's a media person, and it will just all come. But Sharif, with this whole incident happening, Sushant Singh Rajput suicide and other things, I don't know, but we've read that LGBTQ community, and specifically, has more depression, and there's more anxiety. So I think we begin from here. You tell us, is it, how does it work, and is it true that there's more depression? And
See, I think, there is data, international data, which actually suggests that there are higher levels of depression, anxiety, paranoia within the whole rainbow of the LGBTQIA plus community. And I think on a day like today, so in between I've gone online, and you find a lot of people from the queer community connecting in a way with the suicide of Sushant,
yeah,
Rajput, and for reasons because they can relate to the whole idea, or the whole lived experience of depression and anxiety. And some of them actually have posted things like they lose hope if people like him, with his stature, with the access to informations to mental health experts, to that someone like him can commit suicide. It has disturbed a lot of us, even though he doesn't really belong to our community. But coming back to this, I think there are just so many stories within the community of people wanting to commit suicide, uh, sense of loneliness that leads to it. I myself, when I was in class 8, actually, and I mentioned that in my book, that
yeah,
I wanted to end my life, and I scribbled on my desk uh, when I came back home one day from school, saying, I don't want to live. Okay, no one loves me. I don't know exactly what was going through my head at that point in time. I was still quite young. But when I looked back on it, and anyone who knows the queer community well knew that this had to be something to do with the conflict you have when you can't can't figure out your own identity, your sexual identity. When you feel lost in a world which is dominated by heterosexuals, dominated by a certain lifestyle, a certain expectation that parents have of you, which is all in specific boxes and definitions. What a boy should be, what a man should be, what a woman should be, home, family, bed, all of those structures that are there. So that definitely must have impacted me then. And maybe I was still trying to find my feet or trying to figure out who I am. And so I went into the toilet. No one was at home. I took mercury chrome. I almost drank it. I didn't have the courage to take it. So I'm here. And in a way, but but this hasn't happened only once. I mean, depression has come in at different stages. It came in even in 2015, 16, but there were multiple reasons. My brother was ailing. I lost my brother to cancer. I was very, very close to him. I was also, seeing what my mom was going through, who I'm extremely close to, uh, in terms of her health, of looking after my brother. There was this whole freedom and the sense of loneliness, not being able to have a partnership, have a companion that I was struggling with to find. I would get into the shower and start crying, and I didn't know why I'm crying. Uh, I would just like this sit here at the desk and start writing something, and I would break down and just cry, and I have no clue why. There were beautiful songs which would play, and I would be in tears. So, you know, it's only when you can move back from it somehow, and maybe with years of experience, that you kind of relate and understand how what it can be. There have been times that sometimes I feel like, Jesus, I wish I could be, up there, assuming there's heaven, and look down on the world and see what's it like, rather than being here. So these thoughts have crossed my mind, at different stages. But I know now that I won't do that, and I know now that there are answers, there are places to go to, there are people to talk to, and I think that's that journey as such. That even when last year I went through this period of depression, and I thought I could immediately address it, so that I could pick myself up rather than let myself just collapse. So I think it's a problem. It's a huge issue within the community. Imagine, as a heterosexual person, if you were not allowed space, if you were not allowed to make your choices of love, of who you want to be with, uh, you know, the way you want to have a family, and what would that family be? Does it have to be the same? There's just so many things where every moment you feel rejected or you feel intimidated by the sheer size and the number of people around you who only think in one way. You're left out all the time. So it's quite traumatizing, believe me, can be.
Right. I can just
So
must be. Yeah, it is there is a comfort in numbers, but numbers can be very intimidating, especially if you're not on the side of numbers. And
yeah,
it must be. It must be so difficult. And so, if your book, I if you want to introduce yourself in any other way, I'm sorry, I didn't let you do that. So, would you want to introduce yourself to the viewers here?
yeah. Well, I think I'm a person of instinct. So I'm also not a person who has necessarily planned a career. Things have happened, things have come to me. I've been very fortunate also, I'm very lucky. So I believe very strongly in time and place playing a role, other than obviously hard work that you have to put in. Uh, but yeah, I think somewhere, and this is through conversations with others, most people believe that one common thread that I've had through my career and through my life, let me put it that way, it's not really a career, is communication, being able to talk, being able to listen, being able to share, to write, to recite in terms of poems. maybe poems turning into songs as lyrics, uh, being able to communicate also for others when I was in the communication and public relations field. Uh, so I think that's the common thread through and through, from being a journalist or in publishing initially, which was very short, and a journalist, and then a communication man, a PR man, a researcher in between, and then music, and now curation. So I think that's what uh, been the journey through and through, and more I believe, like what you all are doing even today. If more of us can get a chance to share stories, and stories, real life stories of lived experiences, where most of us can speak for ourselves also. I think that's the greatness that the world can give, so that we start understanding each other, as people first. So I think that's, yeah. So I've been, I don't know whether I answered your question.
Yes, you did, and also
Okay.
because Sharif is also a TEDx speaker, and there are so many other things to you. But still, I want to ask you your story as per, because you're like an umbrella, a big tree for the LGBT community. If one has to, you're the pillar, the strongest pillar. And and for you, it would have been a life of it wouldn't have been an easy life, because I think earlier coming out with your story or coming out with your preferences, and so what if you want to, if we've seen your book shares everything, but for the most of the people, the book straight to normal has everything about you, but we would still want to hear your story, as
So
a
first, yeah. So Chavi, first I want to say is that I'm not as I'm just one amongst many people in the community. There are many who work at the ground level and have experienced very terrible types of oppression, even while doing healthcare work and advocacy on safe sex, for example, where they've been arrested under Section 377 earlier. There are just so many people out there that I'm just one amongst them. And the story of someone who's been in urban life of Mumbai, Kolkata, Delhi is very different from someone who's been, let's say, in Kochi, Indore, Moirang in Manipur. So I'm just one voice around there, in that space. So let's say, so the story really, my life, as in this book, is a journey from the time I was born in Mumbai. What was things like in 1968, 69, 70, from that I could recall in terms of my family. And then the movement towards Calcutta, and life actually changed a lot when we moved to Delhi. And we moved into a very different culture compared to Mumbai and Kolkata. One was obviously everyone speaks more of Hindi, but there were other things also in a city like Delhi. So the book uh, covers these periods of time as well. It also gives you a peek or glimpse, not just in my life, and it's about the confusions about the various things. You see, when we have depression, anxiety, a lot of us put on weight. Lots
yeah.
of us. So there was a long period, and that I went to the extent of being about 118 kilos, and the only way I could get myself to be in a position where I'm in control of something, it was using that weight. So when I would fight with my brothers, I could sit on them. If I could just get them down once, I could sit on them. 100 kilos of them was tough for them. So I, so the whole, I mean, there were those funny parts of being, uh, you know, that kind of person at one point. But the whole life goes into what happened even in Delhi. So today we're having these conversations, but imagine newspapers, even as late as 2001, used to only put out salacious reports about the community, like we're only seeking sex. That we don't have, there's no context, or there is no appreciation or understanding of companionship and love in the press in 2001. Okay, 19 years ago. It's not a long time actually when you look at history and the whole period. It talks about the spaces that quietly opened up. It talks about how we used to try and find other people within our community. So you had Anjali last week. So I do refer to Anjali a lot. I mean, to me and to many in the community, she is one of our great pillars. Without being from the community, she is one of our great pillars. Uh, we used to wait to be at the first floor of her residence in D Block, Gulmohar Park, for us gay men to meet. There were like 30 people, sometimes 40, sometimes 50, or sometimes even less. And just getting that chance to meet others like us was that little few hours of comfort of just being able to be yourself, to literally stretch your arms out and relax for that, few minutes that you got, those few hours that you got. Uh, so the book also tells you about how else we used to get together, farmhouse parties, how the police would sometimes invade these farmhouse parties, how some people from the community would go to parks like Nehru Park or Central Park that used to be there in Connaught Place to find someone else. We called it cruising. We
Okay.
would cruise to find someone. So to look at the risks we had to take, we were meeting strangers. Just imagine the comfort, Chavi, for anyone who's perhaps on this, following this. You all meet in workplaces. You may
Yes.
meet through friends. You may meet in college or school. You may meet through family friends, or friends of friends. Uh, so there's always so much of common ground around there, which is not limited only to your sexuality,
Yeah.
right? Whereas for us, our first was just to get that moment of reassurance, and some of the reassurance was through physical intimacy. So it was sexuality that got us together. There wasn't the other elements about this. It wasn't uh, like like Renani is here. It wasn't art, for example. If Shivraj at MCM is good, there wasn't communication and other interests that he has as a person that you could connect on, and the other elements of intimacy and affection and attraction coming, with that. So it wasn't that kind of matter. We never had it. I can't walk around in my colony even today and hope to find another gay man easily. You know, so we didn't have those spaces. So we had to take those risks all the time. We had to act heterosexual. So we used to have terms which haven't completely gone away, straight acting. That's,
Okay.
yeah. So the book takes you through that. It takes you through that. It takes you through incidences that took place in 2001, not just moving the courts, which Anjali did, but the assaults and attacks that took place in Lucknow, or in 2004, where a person was murdered at his home in Anandpur called Pushkin Chandra, and how the press reported. So it goes all the way up to what happened in 2009 and all the way, and the change that even I myself experienced as an individual, a sense of confidence, uh, being in a workplace, first concealing my identity, writing under a pseudonym, and then putting myself out there as a person and not hesitating from being the gay man that I am and that I was. So it goes through all of that, and perhaps underlying something as some of the people who've read the book, it tells you about support. So I refer to my mom very often. I talk about my family, and I, that how they've been there, and just like very many South Asian families, to any child, the family matters, the mother matters, the father matters. All of those things create a certain
Yes.
sense of self, sense of confidence, sense of safety. So it wasn't easy also when I came out. I'm safe at home, but the moment I go out, the world is different. So you're constantly living in these different spaces. One space you're trying to act like this very top corporate CEO guy, and the other you're this very relaxed gay man. Uh, so you have to constantly negotiate these spaces when you're not allowed. to just be yourself. So,
Yeah.
so that's what goes into all of that. Yeah.
Sharif, I just want to understand that when you came out with it, how old were you, and how important is it to come out in the open? I mean, is it being authentic? I mean, why, because that is the major. It's a critical moment in the life of many
Yeah.
of the community itself.
So
How?
coming up. Yeah. Sorry.
No, no, this is yeah,
So coming out is a process. It's not a one-time affair
yeah,
as such, right? So I come out to my mom, then I might come out to extended family, then I might come out at the workplace, then I might come out to some friends in the media because most of my friends are uh, journalists or in the music field or something in the queer community. So there are different stages at which you kind of come out. So I think it means different things to different people. You know? Sometimes it's also a sign of protest, but for me also it was I couldn't when I came out to my mother, I couldn't continue to lie. That was my main thing. There wasn't anything in my life as such that my mother didn't know of. All my friends from work, whether when in my early days in the Pioneer when I was under the Rangnekar, then A.K. Bhattacharya and people like that, uh, I have had my colleagues home. My mom knew everyone from the bureau. All my friends from my colony in Gulmohar Park, whether it's my greatest friend, Nitin, who I refer to in my book, and others there in the colony, uh, I would, she knew them. She knew them and knew them extremely well. And so that's always been the thing on a continuous basis. So suddenly I'm going for these Saturday meetings, and every Saturday I'm trying to spin up a story so that I don't have to tell her. And then I get calls, and we used to have those landlines with extensions. So the phone
yeah,
would ring, and now who do I tell her this is? Who's calling? Because incoming calls on mobile phones were like 16 and 18 rupees a minute. Incoming calls, forget making that call, right? So you can't afford it easily as a journalist, definitely not. So I was 29, 30 then, and so I had to tell her at some stage. And before telling her, I did speak to my closest friends, MK Venu and Chitra, who are journalists. But I had to speak to them first, and it was the strangest conversation. I was expecting some trauma and drama. Nothing happened at all. I mean, I went prepared for the worst, and they just says, "Oh, so you must be knowing this person. You must be knowing that person." They didn't once like say, "Oh, you're gay." No, not at all. I mean, you need millions of more such people actually in this world. But so I had to come out to my mom because I didn't want to lie, because I didn't want to be caught out lying. That was my first thing. I think coming out to Venu and Chitra was to be sure that I could come to them in case I had a problem at home. So my story of coming out is slightly different. Later on, it was more to do with I had to tell my uncle and aunt, my mommy in particular, who I am extremely close to, and she is has always been very protective of me and our family. And she was looking for a girl for me. And I know the process that she was going through, and I just couldn't uh, let her carry on doing that and meeting other families, and also putting girls into that situation where I continuously reject them. And I know how society is that when a girl is rejected by a guy, it has so many different connotations attached to that. So I had to come out, and I came out first to my mama, and and then told her, and so I'm just digressing here, but one
yeah,
of the nicest things that anyone can tell you is to call you at night at 11 o'clock and which was very late those days. That to say that Sharif, you could have told me, and so I said, I know. She says, all I want to tell you is we are there with you always, but life can be very lonely. Imagine 99, I mean, this is 2000 or so when I told her 2000. For someone to have, from a different generation, to have that much wisdom, the ability to think through, to understand, and to. She didn't need to empathize, she's just like that. You don't need to talk about empathy. And I've been really, really lucky when it comes to my mom, to my brothers, and to all of them, to actually be able to say that and extend themselves. To me, uh, at the risks of what society can be like, for many families. I mean, from our own kind of backgrounds, I've known stories that are dreadful. So, it was as you grow more, coming out gives you more confidence because you don't need to hide. The less secrets you have, the more free you are. And I think that's what coming out is also about. To a lot of people, it's also to get a certain acceptance. For a lot of people who don't have this kind of family support, they might have a friend who come and just give them that hug every time they need it. And so I think coming out is all of these elements of support, of being embraced, of being accepted, of not having to lie, of being free of lying, the free of not being another person just to present. Yeah, I mean, if I was an actor, I'll play a different role. But when I'm not having to act in my general life, why should I be compelled to act, you see? So I think it's so many layers in this coming out thing, and that just eases so much out here and here, and that's what it is.
Yeah, it it would be a very dark story because it has to be because till it was not, I mean, till the 377 was not gone, it was also that whole fear and of being caught or harassed. So, what do you think are the mental and emotional issues that people have faced, and what kind of specific to the community?
So I want to say something. One is also on 377.
Hmm,
See, the press has played out a story about freedom.
hmm,
Most of the headlines that followed for the longest time,
yeah,
that even when Anjali and I have had conversations with people, they think we're free as a community. We've been allowed to have, if I may put it that way, we've been allowed to have sex. That's all. There is no law to protect us when it comes to discrimination in schools, colleges, universities, and the rest. There is no law to protect us in the workplace. Yes, there are corporates who are looking at it, but there is no law. There is no law in terms of inheritance rights. People are being disinherited, being chucked out of their families just because of their sexuality, just because of one part of them, an important integral part, but just one part of them is enough to be thrown out of the home, even after 377. There are people who still stare and pass comments. There's a lot happening on social media, even very recently. There have been controversies involving involving certain people on YouTube, etc., who have followings of 17 million, who are poking fun at the trans community, at the gay community, at women, the idea of gender, and they have huge followings, all of whom believe that that's okay. And when some of us from the community watch it, okay, I've lived without 77 so long that maybe I don't get that bothered. But there's a whole community who's come out recently or come out in 2009 during Delhi High Court who are suddenly seeing content which is abusive, which questions your identity, which propagates and perpetuates of a thinking in society where you have doctors even today going around providing a service called conversion therapy that I will be converted to heterosexuality. I mean, come on, 2020, uh, you know. So when you have all of these things, it constantly pushes the community back It constantly pushes you into fear, and that fear manifests into all kinds of mental health issues. You know, all kinds of health issues, lack of confidence. The moment you meet a lover, you want to latch on. So you also want to control because there's that little thing that you can control. It creates other problems even in trying to have relationships. Uh, it's there are jokes in the workplace that people pass. There are there's just so many things on a constant basis around you. So interestingly, even after 377, there are people who said to people in our community that, hey, you're free now, what do you want? You've got this. You see, now if you have the press only telling you that kind of story and no one engaging with the larger truth, then we are always constantly being pushed back into our bedrooms to have sex. That's all the law allows us. Not to walk on and hold hands, not to go out on a date and be asked to leave because you're two men at a place. You know, there are just so many things that constantly kind of that people have to grapple with. I'm lucky. I'm talking about a lot of other people, and I've also faced this before. But I could see that coming back after 377. According to some of my friends in the Hamsafar Trust, the cases for suicide have gone up because the crime of hate has increased because there is a large heterosexual world who don't like the idea of us even getting this little bit of freedom. They feel that we don't have that right, we don't have that dignity, we don't have uh, a space in their idea of society. And people are being pushed back. And last year, a 16 or 17-year-old boy in school in Chennai committed suicide because of his sexuality, what was happening in school. You had a girl, a lesbian girl in Madhya Pradesh, I can't even imagine it, being tied to a tree and beaten. IIT Roorkee, January, I think, this year, a very bright young man committed suicide because sexuality. We've had so many such cases that we know and don't know of that keep happening. People being pushed into marriage. During the lockdown, people who just came out before that, where parents are still grappling with the truth. Uh, they've locked their kids in a room, tell them that, hello, if you commit and promise that you will convert later on and I will take you to a doctor, uh, then I will give you food or I'll unlock the door. Things like that. That kind of cruelty makes it very, very unsafe. And yes, lots of things have changed in 377. The fact that we're discussing it today is also because what happened in the end of September, beginning of September in 2018. But at the same time, there's also this happening. The more we come out, the more people try to push you back. So, so that's where we are. So we need more conversations like this. Reaching as many people. We need mental health people like yourself to talk, maybe to write, to tell the world also. You know, we don't have enough of that material out there, and and that makes lots of us feel unsafe. There are people still leaving the country. I mean, right now you can't, but there's still people leaving the country to find a safe haven, to find a safe place, find a safe partner.
Sharif, this is the story. I just shudder to think if this is the story of one kind of class, the let me say the a little westernized and people who know the things, but there must be this is something that the Hindi speaking or within the villages there would be. I just shudder to think they wouldn't even have a voice probably. One doesn't even know what would be happening, and I think the what is here.
Yeah, so I think there is okay. So I think also some of us assume. I mean, things are awful, definitely in some of the hinterland, in the rural parts of India, there are also places and villages which are dominated by a certain religion, for example, where also they feel certain constraints out there. But there are also amazing stories coming out from there. And so I wouldn't want to, I mean, for my own story, my first kiss was to a servant boy who was working with us from Bihar. He saw absolutely nothing wrong, and it turned out he was bisexual. Now, Delhi, 1999, and this no, this is even earlier. 99 I came out. This is much earlier, late 80s, early 90s. So he belonged. They may not have defined it. They may not have talked about it for sure. He did get married, I believe, or would have got married, and he assumed marriage was anyway part of life. But he didn't see sex or sexuality, as we use the language now, as any as in any box per se. I mean, his comfort uh, at that point was indicated that when I look back. At the same time, within Delhi, there is a very well-known HIV counselor and an activist in that space called Gautam Yadav. Um, Brilliant person, done amazing work. He tested positive very, very early in his life, around 17 or 18. His family, his father, if I'm correct, was an auto driver. His father didn't question him, he accepted him, he did whatever was necessary to support the son. Delhi. But I have friends in Sundarnagar, in Delhi, where the parents have kind of agreed that, I mean, not accepted, but kind of know that their son is gay. But the moment the son comes with someone over, that person can't sit at the dining table. He's an outcast. So, but now in the hinterland and in the rural parts, actually, we found that TikTok, for example, you are finding a vibrant queer community out there telling their stories. There are boys feed one boy feeding another and says, with the eyebrows, he just said, "देख, अभी खाने का समय मेरे मेरे प्यारे इसके साथ है." Something like that. You have girls with facial hair saying, तेरे को मुझे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता कोई घंटा whatever she said, and she says तेरे को problem हो रहा है. So there is some kind of change also happening at that end, and so I wouldn't want to paint uh, everything in the same brush, because we are such a diverse country that at one end you can have an extremely open, comfortable family and friends and everything else, but at the other end you can have absolutely violent ones. And मुझे माफ करिए मैं हिंदी बहुत ही कमजोर है someone has said so हिंदी. So it's very very diverse. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of history to be addressed. In terms of the queer depiction in scriptures, in architecture, in temples in India, for example, in this region, uh, Greek mythology as well to invoke and look at. And now there is talk, there have been reports that 1946, 47, around that time, that the Christian church or something, the church changed certain wordings in the Bible which made us sinners. So, are we going to go back into that, examine it, and push it back to religious groups also? Uh, so, I think uh, it's an interesting time, and I strongly believe a lot of the change and a more inclusive and diverse change will come with greater connection with the other parts of India and not just Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, and things like that. Because there is a world out there where maybe parents are accepting their kids and don't know enough about it. And there might be as much violence as we see elsewhere.
So that brings me to the next question, which is, India has always been a country that had very many genders, and we never had this kind of rigidity. And so, I mean, the typical. So, do you think this? I mean, is it that the West? How far the Western influence has kind of is defining our spaces? Because we always had fluid spaces, masculinity, femininity, Ardhna, Rishwa. So is it that the Western concepts are somehow constricting the? Uh, I mean, it's an open question actually. That sometimes, like
Yes.
they constrict also, the Western ideology because they kind of straitjacket some things. And with LGBT, I've been reading this. It's a little complex, and so I don't know what to say about it. But do you think that sometimes we need
I
to go
think,
back to the basics?
you see, I think definitely there's an influence of the colonized period that we've had.
Yeah.
There is a colonized mind also. Uh, but you can't, I mean, we can't uh, immediately come to a conclusion beyond the fact that there was a representation
Mm.
in society through architecture, through Ardhanarishwar, through certain gods wearing mustaches or women. Otherwise, there are various things out there that perhaps give you that sense of fluidity. But what we don't know is what was their standing in society. See, like for one is to accept our existence, the other is to give dignity
Yeah.
and rights. Now, acceptance that we exist is one thing, right? It's accepted that man, a male partner in a heterosexual marriage, is sleeping around with 10 other or 20 other women, or a CEO is having an affair with the secretary. How much do you discuss that? How much do you give it space? How much do you reject it? Is also how society treats these issues. The idea of purity of a woman and being woman being having the right to marriage doesn't mean she's getting dignity. Okay, so we have to look at all of those aspects before we come to a conclusion
Mm.
that the colonized period, and I wouldn't say all of the West, the colonized period, how much has that impacted us, and would it have changed the status for a hijab, for a kotri, for a bisexual, for a gay man, for a lesbian person, for a person who doesn't want to be identified, doesn't want to be labeled, want to be free. What would that life be minus the colonized period? Would also then India exist without the colonized period
Yeah.
in the same form itself? Because it's this depiction is not across India, right? You have temples in Tamil Nadu which you don't have in Delhi, Punjab, Rajasthan, Kashmir, or
Yeah.
wherever else.
Mm.
You have the dominance of the church in some parts of Manipur, Nagaland, etc., or even in some other states, etc. And how does it look like? So the idea of India itself,
It's very.
and yeah, it's very different. So how do tribals respond to this? What is the status of tribals? Let's say minus colonized people. So I think it's very difficult to say one or two, but definitely uh, we've had something in history. But uh, we've also had a middle class and a large influential press and Bollywood and the rest who are not once wanting to engage with the truth. Now, is that colonized or is that commerce? Is that
Yeah.
capitalism and power and acceptance of a heterosexual world? Or what? Now, is that a Western influence? No. The West, in large parts, have moved way beyond. So I think there are just too many layers to come to that conclusion. But yes, we can accept there are scriptures, certain scriptures in different parts, certain temples uh, have incredible visibility to sexuality.
Sheriff, there are so many questions, and DC has been asking so many. Like, you probably know many who don't feel safe at home for their choices. What are the options they have? And do you find, related to this, is do you find that there are those who don't need to come out and are secure in his or her own choices? So, I mean, this is one question. you know.
Yeah, so safe spaces, as I mentioned, is a problem for the community. When we, and I don't know whether Anjali answered that, we've been trying to see whether we can create shelters. Uh, During this lockdown, for example, there is a fabulous activist out of Hyderabad. I think we talked about her, Vaijayanti. She's a trans woman,
Yeah.
and so she fought a case in the courts out there,
Mm.
and has managed to ensure that the trans community has shelter and food at this point in time. It's quite amazing that the court came out with such an order. But in a general sense, in a general case, there are very few safe spaces where you can stay, where you can feel absolutely secure. There are many queer people who have taken spaces on rent and moved out of their homes and come to urban parts of the country to find financial security and some kind of independence. But even in that independence, sometimes they're not allowed to have someone come and share a room, and meet up and hang out. So even that little safe space that is for yourself, you can't really use it as others would, typically. And uh, you know, so I think that is a problem that we have, and I think there are organizations coming in the workplace which are trying to come forward to create these inclusive spaces in their offices, etc. They're trying to sensitize people so that they understand things a little better. As far as coming out, as I said before, it's a personal journey.
Yes.
It's a personal choice. There are many people who haven't come out. There are a lot of lesbian couples around that they're not out. The moment they come out, there'll be a problem. If you just read about a week, 10 days ago, Apurva Asrani, the scriptwriter of Ali Ghar, who also edited Made in Heaven, edited the film Satya, and got a national award for it, and has written several other really, really good films. He and his partner, Sid, they've lived, they've lived in places as cousins, taken places on rent and cousins for 13 years, and now finally have bought a home together. You know, so just imagine, and I mean, they're far more secure than so many others. If he has a job and his partner has a job, they have some standing in society, and they had to live a life for 13 years, seeing their cousins, so their cousin brothers living together, and so everyone's like, what it is then? At least you won't get women home. Some people might be saying that. Uh, but also, like, I think there's some comments from DC who saying there was no intolerance. That's unverified, and that's not true. Tolerance depends on how you want to look at tolerance. As I said, if you don't have dignity, that's intolerance. If there is no self-respect given to or no respect given to another person, that's intolerance. You don't have to be beaten up, and the blood doesn't have to shed from your veins to get depressed, right, and commit suicide. You don't need to be beaten and have bruises to show to everyone to be feel that you've been beaten up, you know, and that you've been pushed to the corner. So it's not quite true to claim that that there was intolerance in India, because the idea of India itself is an idea of regions. It's a subcontinent, and we got
Exactly.
India from the British. It was the British India that was given to us. So I think we need to also read our history a lot better to understand that we've had the Cholas, we've had going into Southeast Asia, the Hindu temples going to all the way to Bali, to Vietnam. So we've had all of that. You go to the temples in Bali and in Vietnam, and all of them, they don't have the same depictions of sexuality as we see in some other parts of India. So let's read history and see history for it to understand some of these factors. So again, I'll just say coming out is a personal choice. You can't force someone. We've had well-known film heroes, I mean not heroes as in actors, directors and producers who've not come out and plainly said I'm gay.
Right.
And I think you'll know who I'm referring to. So it's his choice. But if he uses it to his advantage in terms of business, it's highly irresponsible.
Right. So, Sharif, how does one really work towards inclusion? And I mean, in practical terms, you just tell us what we should do as as somebody who's more in numbers to, for inclusion.
See, I think firstly, I mean, I prefer to, I don't like that word inclusion. I just feel if people could be taken for who they are, and it's not necessarily whether they're heterosexual or homosexual, but yeah, in this case, for homosexual, just look at a person for who they are. They feel the same way. They have thoughts in their minds. They can be creative. They can be destructive and vicious, just like anyone else. They can be loving and caring. They all seek love. They love a good hug. They all want that space that everyone else has of space of safety, of dignity. So what we need is more conversations. We need more stories out there. Uh, we need laws to protect us. We need sensitization programs from the government itself. The Supreme Court order talks about it, but there's absolute silence from the center. There have been political parties who put it in their manifesto and have done nothing about it in their respective states. So if you're not going to use media and all the mediums out there, then we are constantly not in the eye. We're not in the consideration set of people. So we are always this other person, this other community who seems very foreign, unknown, and we don't want to engage with them. We need the media talking about us, telling our stories. We need the space to tell our stories ourselves as well. And so I feel it's to engage, because if you don't engage, uh, you won't know us.
Yeah,
Uh, it's as simple as that. Um, Right. I'm sure that a lot of the acceptance for me itself also came from the fact that many people knew me as someone else as well. They knew me as a journalist. They knew me as someone who loved cooking. They knew me as someone who tries to write poetry and sing songs and composes music. They've seen me as all of these people, all of these individuals as such in one. So that the multidimensional factors of each one of us, and that's not unique to us. It's unique to everyone. So it's kind of common. So I think people can break their phobias and fears if they come closer to us. If
yeah,
we have more spaces to say and tell stories. And as someone said in Hindi, right? If I was much better in Hindi, I'd perhaps be able to explain and express and reach maybe larger numbers. So we need these conversations in different languages,
right.
not just English. Let not English dominate necessarily uh, the change that we need.
Yeah.
Let the other regions, the other languages, all of those, all of which have so much weight and connectivity with cultures, with regions, also, not also, but have to play a major chunk of the storytelling.
That brings that's a very interesting point, because when we talk about reaching out and other things, so there was a question also that it's a very stereotypical representation of both this. And when we were and you mentioned one fear, so what do you think, what is the kind of fear that heterosexuals have, because that's the, I mean, somewhere you fear something. And so what do you think, what according to you is the fear, what contamination, what is it that just gets, that people just
See, I
start
think it's the
avoiding?
fear,
हिंसड़े को हम देख के घबरा जाते हैं. So what do you think, how
वो
would
तो,
you?
you see, I think the hijras are one part of the community.
Yes.
Okay? Uh, they're not the only thing. But if you engage with a trans person, man or woman, so the trans man, trans woman, if you engage with a hijra or a pothi, that within them there are different identities. you will get to know what it is to be pushed aside all the time. You will get to know that you're only recalled and called at a point when there is a festival, or there's a marriage, or there's a newborn. And some people call them for blessing. But
Yeah.
the moment blessing is done, they're thrown out. Now, in a society where there is absolutely no space for them, and all they're left with is begging and sex work, where both don't have any dignity, because we're a country which doesn't believe in dignity or labor anyway, you know, and everything is casted, looked at with doubt, not once understanding what poverty is, what it is to go and, knock on the car door at a red light, at a crossing. Has anyone engaged to know why they do that? Has anyone, and you just say, go, you should work. Who's going to employ them? How many of them will come to your home? Will you hire them to work in your home? You won't even start there, you know. And so we need to know what they go through and why they become somewhat or appear to be aggressive within our own community and within others. It's called transphobia. There are also
Okay.
people from our community who have transphobia because they're not really engaged. There is drag phobia, there is
Yeah.
cross dressing phobia,
Yes.
right? Because also a lot of us are conditioned, which is why it takes us sometimes so much longer to engage with our own reality.
Yes.
Because we are also conditioned by everything around us. Also, our idea of love is romanticized by Hollywood and Bollywood. Like those 2 hours thrown at you, every now and then on cinema, on TV, give kind of fixates things, puts things in a slot of what love is also, those
Yeah.
rings. Because then someone will be able to send you a diamond ring later on. No one understands the connections with advertising, surrogate
But
advertising, selling a lifestyle, right?
yeah.
So that lifestyle is also sold to everyone, including within our community. The idea of aspirations are all fixed in definitions. No one wants to disrupt and break it. So when it comes back to society and the heterosexual person, there is this notion of masculinity.
Yeah.
So you don't want to appear as someone else. How long did it take us to accept a man crying on TV, on a cinema hall? Just go back into the films. It took so long to have a man cry. Even heterosexual men cry and
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
How long did it take us? Even now, it's difficult for a woman to go to work. You know
Yeah.
how so when you have these such strong, feudal mindsets, ideas of masculinity, ideas of femininity, and no space to let it be, just let it be. You know, then you're always going to have mindsets. So there is this fear that the family structure will break. There's also fear of some parents who want to reject the child because they're scared also of what could happen to them if they go out in society. You see, there are also others who are protective, but it comes out sometimes later. There is also uh, the the sense that it is a stigma because we've carried it as a stigma for so long. And so you will tell your son or your daughter, get married, carry on with your life. You generally tell the son because the man has so many liberties outside of home,
Yeah.
out here, and unquestioned. So really, we need press, we need cinema to break away from caricatures. We need cinema to tell our stories the way they are. We need a Kuch Kuch Heta Hai just as a commercial Hindi love story. It could be two men, it could be two women, it could be a trans man and a woman. It could be any combination. And if that story would be told that way also, because those realities also exist within our community, that would perhaps change mindsets. It's a long journey,
It is.
but you also need a law. You need the law. You need the law. Any doctor's license is going away if they do conversion therapy.
There are so many issues here, layers. As you're speaking, there are so many questions that are coming to my mind. Layers, the physical health, the mental health would have a very different thing. And also, but before that, Sheriff, I know you write poems and you are a well known poet also. So if you could just read out,
Um,
if we'll be very happy if you could just read out one or two of your poems.
okay, I'll read one poem, and there is a context to that poem. So we started Pride Month on June 1st, International Pride Month. Um, and I think the audience here should know that there's pride across this country in different periods, different times of the year.
Yes,
Jaipur is another time, Bombay is another time, Bangalore is another time, Delhi is another time. So like that, so on, so on, so on. It's across the country. But this is the International Pride Month. So between first and third, and so I was also in conversation with Nas, Anjali, and her colleague. We lost a very young activist. He was 22 years old. He was going through mental health issues, etc. We'd spoken. We'd been on a panel together. His name is Arpit Bhalla. He came from Haryana. He came from a region in Haryana which was known for toxic masculinity, very strong patriarch, violence in the family. Also known for honor killings. Uh, and he chose to, yeah, he didn't have the greatest relationship with his parents, but you can't blame the parents alone when your ecosystem is so bad. It's an ecosystem.
yeah,
But even today we are discussing this, and there might be 4 houses away, there may be a queer person who's been chucked out, from where I am. But we lost him. And there were a lot of things that happened in those 3 days. And it also followed another case where a girl from Kerala went to Goa. It was in the press. Her parents wanted to do conversion therapy. She committed suicide when she reached Goa. Um, and then also there's a lot of politics within the community because of the kind of polarization we've been seeing in India, caste, class politics, etc. and all that stuff. So I was really depressed the day we lost our book. Depressed is not the right word, actually. I was very sad and upset that so much is happening that we still need to go through this whole journey of understanding HIV and that it's not a stigma and it can be cured and you can live with it. Not cured, but you can be lived with it. You can live with it. Uh, and that there are families and kids who cannot have conversations at all of any kind. All of that was bothersome and everything that has been happening in the last few months. So I wrote a poem, and the trigger was the loss of our pet, and the trigger was all of these many things actually. So it's just, yeah, I found it. It's on my phone. What is pride when you've taken away the colors? What is pride when you can't be together? What is pride when solidarity is murdered? What is pride when your mother isn't your mother? What is life when your family is the other? How to live when your pride is to suffer? Why take pride when all you get is a gutter? That you rise in a life like no other, that you speak as your courage for one another, that you live on your terms forever. But why I cry as my tears are of anger? How can I smile when I know how you've suffered, that your life was short and yet forever? We know your life is one amongst many others. If we take pride, let's fight to save each other, and let our pride fight for every color. Let not a life be wasted as it were a number. Let not a life go down without our flag and how it flutters. So I've written this on
very
3rd of
beautiful.
June. So so that I think in a way encapsulates many things that we need, we want, and we must have. It's our right, it's our dignity, but it's also our responsibility in a certain way to uh, contribute to bring the change and these platforms. And yeah, so we need a lot of that. And So we've got a long way to go.
Yeah, it is a long way, and you brought out all the issues. There are so many, and one uh, you want to recite another poem because there's there are people saying so much of pain, but you know,
Yeah,
the
so
happy
yeah,
moments.
that was
Share something that
yes.
brought you happiness about this whole journey.
Actually, the strange thing as I've written a lot on politics in my poetry about discrimination, about women, etc. I haven't, I haven't written too much of love, but I can't find. But I think there was maybe a poem which was to do with about I think a period of depression around 14, 15. Then I wasn't wrong, but it also talks about coming out of it. And I think somewhere I wanted to, when I'm looking back, I wanted to disengage also. I was already feeling alone, but I wanted to disengage. So it's not necessarily great. This was about 6 years ago. When those tears roll down and the eyes turn red, I'm still living, and my heart just bled. It's not about the road, it's not about the path. I'm stuck at a juncture. Should I keep running instead? There are no lights, no traffic there. I'm cluttered with my mind. I need to get somewhere. When the tears roll down and I see nest, I'm still living, even my heart just bled. I crossed over the road one side to the other. It all looked the same and I felt the strange shudder. What was I seeking or had I been peeking, only to keep falling, to resume a new seeking? And the tears rolled down and my cheeks looked pale. The blood was flowing even as my heart just bled. I didn't stop going with my rear view mirror ahead. It was dead moments that created the dread. I had tired my mind and exposed my heart, had protected very little, my life was so stark. My face moist with tears, I dried them dead. I saw the sunrise, melancholy had just fled.
Oh, this is beautiful, very
So you've got
beautiful.
me to remember it, and fortunately they're all on my phone and
Okay,
sync with the cloud. Yeah, I didn't think of it earlier.
yeah, there
So,
is a
but yeah, it was,
sorry, sorry,
yeah, I'm just saying
sorry.
it was just, it
Very
shows,
beautiful.
it is, yeah, okay.
But there is a lot of pain in whatever you. There's a comment here that, of course, everybody knows they've written that you sing very well and you make music.
I'm not gonna sing. Yeah, I'm not gonna sing.
No,
I don't
I'm
think I
not.
will sing.
I'm not going to ask you because you told me that you wouldn't be able to sing. So that is this, and there are of course people saying they love you so much. And Sharif,
I love Smriti too. Well, she's a fantastic girl. She's a singer-songwriter herself, uh, and she's out there, and she's wonderful.
Mrinalini has also said one more
Yeah.
poem, please. So they're all there
Oh, I think she said that for the after the first
after
one.
first poem. Okay, okay,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So I cannot get you to recite another one, but there is,
But I wrote. I mean, but it's totally unrelated, so I don't think I should read. I wrote about independent artists and freedom,
then you should.
and how they're getting crushed. How they're getting crushed. They were getting crushed always, but how they're going to get crushed even more with the lockdown. Because where do we perform?
Yeah,
Right? Spaces. There are queer artists coming out and trying to raise money for various causes, who are singing and all of that, but no one's paying them. You see, so we're living in a world. So I won't get into that. That's a different topic on another day. It creates mental health problems. Believe me, a whole sense of insecurity.
there are so many layers to this, and Sharif, I just a question that came to my mind is that how is there anything that if we want to understand the community, even say for instance how to address there is this he she and the pronouns, and yesterday Richa was here and she was specific about this. So is there something that can be a little can we look at and can we have that literature or something that we can circulate, or we
See,
can
I
just
think,
go.
yeah, I think, if you go online and you just go to pronouns,
Yeah.
gender pronouns, you'll automatically find the he, she, and they.
Okay.
And then you have to leave it to the individual to decide whether they're he, she, they, or don't want to be addressed in any person. So I
This.
think that's something we need to get used to. And even for myself, at the age of 51 now, uh, soon will be 52, and we'll still be locked down celebrating birthdays, which is fine. Um, you will still, you know, I struggled to adjust to day because I've been taught for so many years of language structure, right? Grammar, and how to use them. So it takes a while, but you have to at one point be conscious of it. Then it becomes part of your conscious being. It's
Right.
just like acceptance. If you can accept everyone, not tolerate, because tolerate is you're not engaging with the truth.
Yeah.
Acceptance is trying to get to know at least some bits and finding some connection that gives you that comfort. Because we're not very different. Like
But
Mrinalini is here, where she's family, she's one of the most amazing people I know. And we can differ on many things, but we can completely be there for each other. And it has nothing to do with sexuality. you know
so
so I think it's yeah, like DC says, it's a matter of habit. You
yeah.
have to form that habit, and you need to search for that information, and you'll find it. And it can offend people. Don't get upset if someone gets angry if you didn't refer to them as they, and they get angry about it. You didn't know, but that's one way to remember that it can be a very, very uh, you know uh, offensive to someone. But
Right.
just like if I were to tell a woman and I say you don't seem like a woman at all,
Ah.
she might just slap me. How dare you? You know. So we need to understand it's as simple as that.
But DC says here that in Hindi we do not have a pronoun issue.
She's right. That's why I talked about language earlier.
Yes. So that
We
is a
have to understand. That's why I kept saying that everything should not be dominated by one language.
yes.
Even though this is my comfort language, I know 100% I've been working very hard on Hindi, more and more and more. It's just that I'm right now not mentally prepared or ready to express everything I need to in Hindi. But and it's not only about Hindi. It's about Tamil. It's about Sanskrit.
But
It's about Manipuri. Malayalam, so many other languages. Do we know what those definitions are? If we have to assist, if we have to facilitate, or if we have to at least listen, to start with listen, not
yeah.
dictate, even urban queer people, if we were to listen to others from different regions and not othering them, we will only learn and we will only actually truly be diverse, even as a community. If we realize that there are different words, different uses. Just like in Hindi, yeah,
Yeah.
we don't have please, right? Zara ye kar lijiye. When you
Yeah.
just say zara, it makes a huge difference. It's as good as please, if not greater.
Yeah.
अगर हम शुक्रिया कहते हैं, धन्यवाद कहते हैं, it could be in, it's a thank you, it's gratitude. The tone also matters.
Yes.
We've got too fixated with the please and thank yous
Yeah.
as people, and we immediately consider someone rude when they don't use those words,
Yes.
which again means we've disengaged with their truth.
Right. That's a very important point, and I want to emphasize we have to
Yeah,
engage with the person's truth. I think that is the bottom line. If I
yeah,
don't,
absolutely.
that is, you've just nailed it in one
Just like the
sentence.
daily wager, right? Did we
Ah.
ever care for them when they were working here? We
Yeah.
suddenly woke up one day when they were being treated badly, or a migrant worker who was
Yeah.
suddenly lost, right? When they were here, building our homes, did the same people think at that moment?
Yeah.
Some did. I'm not saying some didn't. How much are we engaged with their truths, their desire to go home? We all wanted to be home during the lockdown. All of us want to be with our people. It's the same thing. The queer person wants to be with their family, want to be part of that family. So
So
that's it.
this is just um, you also organize this literature fest and other this for the community. So how important is that? Why did you think of organizing a separate fest? Because we have the Jaipur Literature Fest, we already have things happening. But why did you think that there should be a separate literature fest?
So I think your part of your question is in your
Answer.
theme, in your
Yes.
theme
Okay.
beyond gender boundaries and
Boundaries and
geographies. Okay,
yeah.
so I will look at it from the point of view of intersections. So
Okay.
this did come through a period of depression, by the way. So it was my editor, Dibakar, who's worked on my book, who's a wonderful person to have. I mean,
Mm,
I would wish friends like him that you can make in such a short period.
mm,
Uh, and he knew I was hitting this downturn. There was this downturn happening in my life. He could read through me, and just said that I should convert an event I used to do, which I've done the first year. It was called Voices in the Silence, and
yeah.
turn it into something like a lit fest because we don't have. So
Mm,
I started thinking about it, and it was very important that he told me this at that time because I had something to anchor myself during my
yeah.
depression. I also had something to focus on, which was bigger than me, and I
Yes.
wanted something bigger than me. I'm always happier uh, in that state, you know.
Right.
So even my band has a logo, Friends of Linger. It's not about me. Okay. So I love it like that. I like the idea that we're all together. I
Right.
love love, even if one doesn't have it, but I love love and peace. I think I learned a lot from Dylan, John, and John Lennon in that sense.
Right.
So, but it came from I added to that Rainbow Lit Fest to clear and inclusive because I'm done with a world who keeps telling you that they know what inclusion is when they haven't ever done it. They don't know what exclusion is to understand inclusion. They've not been able to engage sufficiently with us. And I'm not saying there aren't people who are genuine. I'm just saying generally.
Yeah.
So I felt that queerness is also about contesting or challenging power. It's about disrupting also certain structures that exist. I
Right.
believe there's common ground with a woman, for example, who's felt slighted, who's pushed aside, who's put into a slot in a box, and was only expected to behave in a certain manner, who's supposed to worship the man all the time. We have that in the queer community as well. The sense of being pushed, of being isolated, of being put into a slum, of oppression. Uh, we also have stories of victory, of great strong women. We have stories of great strong people for similar reasons. We both suffer from patriarchy in many ways and feudal mindsets. We also have other issues of race and color, of caste. We have Dalit queer. We have Dalit trans. We have issues of color. Anwar Shah, who has faced it, who was a Mr. Canada in 2016, came from a small town, and from our own community, people said he was not the poster boy. He was this dark guy. He was brown skin. They wanted a fair guy. You want a fair woman. You want a fair man. Gori chitti. Same problem. Same issue. Uh, and love is common. You see? War can be different, but they're both equally destructive. War.
Right.
Okay. So I looked at common ground, I looked at intersections, and I felt we needed a space because there was an appetite at the Jaipur Lit. There's an appetite at other literature festivals when you can see that one panel, just one panel in 2 days or 3 days or 4 days, talks about gender or queer issues, and there are a lot of people coming. So we needed our space to speak. We needed our space to talk, and we are welcoming. We've lived with the heterosexual world, and we are more than happy for having them. So we had people like Nandita Das, we had people like Devdutt, Oni, um, Anjali, obviously, some well-known lawyers, Shubha Mudgal, who
Yeah.
looked at classical music and gender, and also in classical music, the role of man and woman and who sings what. See, we had Alka Pandey, who wrote about
Yeah.
Bharatanatyam herself. So, it was all of these intersections taking place out there because that's the world we have to see. And there was this energy or spirit of diversity, which is
Right.
incredible.
Right.
And thanks to all those people, it would not have happened without them.
Oh, there is a question that what are the things in order of priority that need to be done to bring about equality, if you have to, or and then there's this.
I would start with anti discrimination laws.
Hmm,
At the same time, I would say it has to be multi pronged. It can be one or the other. But it doesn't mean we don't start on something because we're waiting for the other, because we can't control the world. So we need anti-discrimination definitely happening,
yeah,
dissemination at the school levels, at the college levels, etc. Educating people on gender, educating people on the space, looking at the books that they are being taught on sex, on stories of love, bringing those changes so that people will be more relaxed about it, will learn more about it, maybe ask questions about it so they get answers to it. So we need that happening at those early stages in life, because we can't look at change happening for me.
yeah,
We need to see change happening for generations that are coming out here. We
right,
need change happening for those who are already out there and struggling in colleges and other spaces. We need change in terms of marriage laws, obviously, as well. But we need the media to change. And we need, when I say media, we need Bollywood to change. We need space for alternative, so called alternative cinema. Why is there an alternative cinema? Cinemas should be an expanse of freedom.
yeah,
So we need those things going out. It is multi-layered. We need uh, more parent groups who we can engage with to tell ourselves, to tell them, and to bring parents in front who have had no problems per se. They don't
yeah,
need to use the word acceptance, you
right,
because their child is their child. Simple. It's not so complex if you
yeah,
just look at that simple thing. So I think we need this happening across. So we need practitioners like you. We need more. We need more of Richas out there uh, on the same page, on the same platforms. We need.
yeah.
So it's just, it can't be one thing. It can't be. It has to be many things. It has to be many things.
Sharif, there is one other question that always that is ever since I've we've been working on this is troubling me, and I want to ask you this. Uh, you know, the stereotypical heterosexual matrix of one dominant partner, one submissive partner. I mean, we've just superimposed it on the gay relationship or the lesbian relationship. It's like that's the way it's projected. So, I mean, I just want your comments on this because there is equality. There must be a different equation, and somewhere even those stereotypes that come in through the media and through the movies. I just want to understand that. It's a little, I know it's personal, but
No, no, it's not. It's not personal at all. I mean, it's not. So I think it's really the limitations of these words, dominant and. So there was a time I remember being asked, "Are you king or queen?" in the gay
ah,
community.
okay,
I actually didn't get it at that point because we also have top and bottom.
okay,
Okay, so one who penetrates the other, the other is the bottom. So therefore, the other is assumed to be also the queen. So the other is also assumed to be the submissive one.
okay,
Now, when it comes just purely to the sexual act, you can want to use words like that. You could top, bottom. You have versatile as well. You can be both. But when you look at characteristics, it's not necessary that the so-called dominant partner on the top will necessarily be the more aggressive or the patriarch. Not necessarily. That can happen in some trans relationships because one is a trans man and the other is a woman, so they might adopt some of those things, but maybe it's also something natural to them.
yeah,
Let's not also assume everything is adopted. Uh, the uh, in a lesbian relationship, I can't really completely say, but I do know relationships where both are very headstrong people. So they have these amazing fights, but they have this amazing love as well. So argumentative, etc. Uh, in relationships that I've had in the past, also, while I might be the dominant partner in bed, I can still also be the more coy, romantic person. In bed as well, but also the romantic person outside the bed, in everything else, which actually also cements the relationship beyond the sexual act. So there are these assumptions which are drawn because the word dominant is seen as the patriarch and the man, and because the submissive is seen as the woman. Now we have to break that as well, because
Yes.
those are not the um typically necessarily the characteristics in every queer relationship.
Right.
Uh, and and also, at the end of the day, even in clear relationships that last, there is something that you create together. There is a sanctity of home and space, just like other relationships. There is also common ground of interests.
Right.
Uh, and if those aren't there, just like any friendship, you don't build a friendship without some common values, right? You
Mm.
don't build, and in those friendships, it's not necessarily one is more dominant than the other.
Right. Right. Right.
And in a companionship also, there shouldn't be an absolute immediate conclusion of what you do in bed means is what you are. A homemaker may be very dominant. I've been to a VA home, friends of mine. My God, uh, the bread earner as such, who became the bread earner, they decided at some stage that, "Well, listen, I don't want to work anymore." And the other guy says, "Yeah, I mean, just don't. We don't need it." And he carried on working. But sorry to use the language, shit scared of his partner when he comes home, because his partner doesn't like disorder. He doesn't like the slippers or the shoes put somewhere. You have to take out, even I have to take off my shoes outside the home before entering. This is Bangkok. Okay, and the two Indians. Oh no, one Indian and one Taiwanese. Uh, and when it came to food, when it came to the kitchen, when it came to all that stuff, boy, you he is aggressive but loving, but aggressive in a beautiful, caring way. Now, do you want to call that at home he was the dominant partner? You know, so I think we have to change these meanings and move away
Yes.
from the definitions that I've, and that's for all relationships.
Right.
You know, so
And that's what they're saying, that more real cause they're not. DC has some lot of questions here, but it looks like interpersonal relationships don't change. They are more comments, of course, and are likely to be more real because they're not imposed. There is another question that
oh,
she asked
I
that
think the last point, yeah, where she's saying relations are likely to be more
uh,
real because they're not imposed. No, no, no. The fact that a large section of the gay community is looking for same-sex marriage, we're going more or less down the same route.
yeah.
If we could disrupt the Marriage Act itself,
Mm.
then perhaps we would be adopting something new. Because I think even within the Marriage Act, and if you read towards the end of the book, dignity, relationships and companionships, etc., don't have to always be fixed into the relationship or into a structure of marriage. Those rights should be to you in any case without the marriage. Right. So, but there is a romanticization also of marriage, and I have nothing against marriage. Even I want romance. Even I want a relationship. Even I have interests in a certain being, and I want to see something happen there. But uh, if I'm left with no option but to have the marriage act to secure certain things for the two of us, if there was another, uh, then I have to follow that, right? So there are impositions, there are ideas of romance. I mean, if we have candlelight dinners, where the hell do those candlelight dinner ideas come from? If it's a rose flower, where those rose flower ideas come from? Yeah, you know, giving a ring,
Yeah.
cutting a cake on a birthday or on an anniversary. there's fortunately or unfortunately not enough differences for
Right,
you to really see so much difference.
right, right. Sheriff, is there, I like as a counselor also and as a psychologist, people come to me, there are problems there. But is there any place that we can send them for help or any kind of support group? Because there are a lot of stories, and I've discussed it with Anjali on the first day also, that people come in and there's their minors, or there is this, they are often raped. I don't know, the word is raped only, because in a party or in a rape party or something, that the seniors, or and they are, so is there any support group that you can tell us so that we can send people there? And you know
I think unfortunately, from what I know, is that very limited uh, counselors in Delhi, like, unfortunately, who can deal with the whole spectrum. But there are support organizations. I mean, there are
yeah,
groups, queer groups across Delhi. There is Nazaria, which does a lot of work for the trans as well as the lesbian community. It's a queer
okay,
feminist group, actually.
okay,
There is a lady called Rituparna. She does hell of a lot of work. Quite admire what she does. And then there are uh, there's Harmless Hugs, which is really a group of gay people. So you can kind of just hang out and feel a sense of normalcy, etc. There are many more groups like that, but there aren't necessarily organized structures in Delhi sufficiently. So that's why uh, there are some heterosexual counselors, but I myself have had years ago when I went to them, I've had problems with them because they really couldn't understand and engage with what we are going through. You know, and but that's why Richa plays a great role because she
right,
does so much work, and she's based out of Bombay. But today, with this digital world, at least you can kind of engage with her. There are other groups also in Bombay, in Bangalore, Hyderabad, and all that stuff. So uh, Nas used to do a lot earlier. Hamrahi used to do that. There was a lot of counseling that used to take place. So I think in our situation, you have to also find uh, friends and listeners as well. And I know at Mitra Trust, like for the trans community, they do a lot. There's AHF, which is the HIV, which does a lot of work on HIV, but they have counselors for HIV and those problems. And that HIV problem is layered because you're dealing with sexuality as well in the cases that go there. I mean, HIV is also prominent amongst
yeah,
other communities as well. It's prevalent as well. But so they have counselors there at AHF. That's in Delhi in Rajpat Nagar. Then the HIV/AIDS Alliance does have a few people who help things like that. But I'm not sure we have proper trauma kind of uh, counseling to deal with that to that extent. Uh, out there. So it's a problem. It's a problem. There's a gap, that needs to be filled soon. So I think we are really more reliant on friends and groups socializing. So uh, so gay parties and queer parties turn out to be these stress busters for people. So just to have that space, and it kind of helps them forget assaults, rape, abuse, and things like that. So unfortunately, yeah, those are the limited options that are there.
so I mean, there are suggestions, of course, that we should form a support group and offer counseling services, which I think we will take it up, and I will see, and I'll discuss with you how to work on it
I
and
think
every
Anjali, Richa, and all can do great.
help out.
Anjali,
I'll be which
Richa,
we'll look at and maybe do training so that there are a lot more people who are trained in the same issues, and that's one
yeah.
thing that we will work in. And we've I think that there are, the questions will never end. But Sharif, thank you for your time. But before you go, one message that you want to give to all our viewers?
Well, I think I would say just let people be who they are. And just like you want to be accepted for who you are, uh, everyone has that desire, right, and the right to life to live like that, the right to dignity to be like that. So I think we need to uh, remember that at every moment and don't judge. Judging is usually when you lack knowledge about anyone, anything, anyone. And so I would just say uh, engage and let people be. That's what I have to say. Nothing really more.
Thank you so much, because I have to tell this to the viewers. You've been so busy, and there were so many multiple things. You're, I know that you're going through a very tough phase right now with all the COVID cases, and you're in charge and everything. And still, you took out time. I don't know how to thank you enough. And thank you for
No, no, no.
sharing.
I think thank you so much, Chavi, because all of these sessions help me also uh, rethink, keep thinking, learning from also the comments. I've been seeing some of them from Sharif, DC. Uh, it's great because every session like this is a learning experience for each one of us. I think who come onto such discussion platforms and things like that. It helps us sharpen our own minds and also taking me back into time of some things uh, keeps reminding me of my journey, which I should never ever forget. Because that's the only way I'll also be able to understand other people's journeys when they seem similar. I'll be able to see the similarities.
We are going
So,
to be calling.
yeah.
And Sharif, you've been a big support. And I think I just want to say this, that this space becomes for sharing. You've shared so openly, and it's almost like a sacred interaction then. And I thank you so much. And if we need your help, we're going to call you back, because there is so much.
Obviously, anything for our community and anything that can help change some things, change one mind, that's also a lot. I
Yeah.
wish changing one mind was like COVID 19. Then you at least know around 15 others have been infected by a good thought. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that.
And when I started this, I've told you, Sheriff, it was more intellectual, but it's kind of, I mean, the emotional part is like just overwhelming listening to your story. And I think there's a lot to do, and there's a lot that we have to contribute. And it's too late. I know it should have been done yesterday, these kind of conversations. And I
So,
hope
no, no,
we
never too
can
late.
bring a change.
Yeah.
Sheriff, thank you
Thank you
so
so much,
much.
Sally. Thank you to everyone who's been there. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
I think they want to hear you more, but I mean, say
No,
looking
I've heard
forward.
my voice. Chavi will
Thank
speak. No,
thank you so
some
much,
other
Chef.
time, some other time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but you can
Thank you.
connect with me on social media. Anyone on Facebook, Instagram. I'm not.
Yeah.
I am on Twitter, but I'm not really very active on Twitter. So just feel free. Drop me a line. If there are other sessions like this, you can join in. And I think it's important to stay engaged with what Chavi is doing because you'll find that a lot of common ground, a lot of commonalities in mental health issues, uh, and we can just keep learning from it. I'd say that.
And with this, we come to
Thank you
the
so
end.
much.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Sheriff. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. Good night and
Thank you
stay
to the
safe.
viewers.
Stay well. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all of you who've been there. Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
thank you.
Ciao.
Yeah. So with this, we come to the end of this session. And conversation is talking cures is a session. If you have your story, if you want us to talk about it, अगर आप चाहते हैं अपनी story है, please come out with your stories, and it helps. Talking cures, talking helps. Thank you.